dare hear stories that will freeze your blood, where shadows watch and the unknown waits. Every sound, every step could be your last. Unknown presence. Horror movie style font, misty glow, subtle flicker, shadows moving behind letters. I moved into the apartment 3 weeks ago. 4th floor, corner unit, quiet building in a decent neighborhood. The kind of place where people mind their own business. I liked that. After my divorce, I needed somewhere I could just exist. No drama, no noise, no complications. The first knock came on a Tuesday. I remember because I just started a new remote job that Monday, and I was still adjusting to the schedule. I'm a light sleeper, always have been, so when I heard it, I sat straight up in bed. 3 sharp knocks. Deliberate, not frantic, not timid, just purposeful. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. My first thought was that someone had the wrong apartment. It happens. I waited, listening in the darkness, expecting to hear footsteps moving away, maybe a muffled apology in the hallway. But there was nothing. Just silence pressing against my ears like water. I got up and walked to the door, my bare feet silent on the cold hardwood. I have one of those peepholes with a wide-angle view. I looked through it. The hallway was empty. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd dreamed it. I'd been stressed with the move, sleeping poorly. The mind plays tricks. I went back to bed and eventually fell asleep, though it took longer than it should have. The second knock came on Thursday. Same time. 3:17 a.m. according to my phone. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same force. I was awake instantly, my heart already racing before my conscious mind caught up. This time, I knew I hadn't dreamed it. I stayed in bed for a moment, listening. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I thought about calling out, asking who it was, but something stopped me. Some instinct I didn't quite understand yet. I got up and moved to the door more quickly this time. Looked through the peephole. Empty hallway, fluorescent lights humming. Nothing. But this time, I opened the door. The hallway stretched in both directions, sterile and still. The elevator at the far end was closed. Its floor indicator showing it was on the ground level. The stairwell door to my right was shut. No sounds of footsteps, no closing doors, nothing. I stepped out into the hall, the cold tile shocking against my feet. I walked to the stairwell door and pulled it open, letting it swing wide. The concrete stairs descended into shadow, and I listened for the echo of footsteps. But there was only the ambient hum of the building's ventilation system. When I turned back, my apartment door was closing. I lunged for it, catching it just before it clicked shut. I'd left my keys inside, my phone too. The door had one of those automatic locks, the kind that engage the moment they close. I stood there for a moment, holding the door open, my breath coming faster than it should. Something felt wrong about that. I hadn't pushed the door hard enough for it to swing shut on its own. The hinges weren't loose. I'd checked them when I moved in. But doors don't just close by themselves, do they? I went back inside and locked the door. Then I checked the chain lock. Then the deadbolt. Then I stood there in my dark living room, listening to my own breathing, feeling ridiculous and frightened in equal measure. Friday and Saturday passed without incident. I started to relax again. Maybe it had been a prank. Maybe some teenager in the building thought it was funny to knock on random doors in the middle of the night. Kids do stupid things. But Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I don't know why. I wasn't thinking about the knocks, not consciously anyway. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, watching the way the shadows moved when cars passed on the street below. My bedroom window faces the parking lot, and occasionally headlights would sweep across the ceiling like slow, searching fingers. At 3:17 a.m., I was wide awake. The knock didn't come. I lay there tense, waiting for it. Every small sound made me flinch. The building settling, the apartment above me creaking, the distant wail of a siren somewhere in the city. But no knock. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like something was watching me, waiting to see what I would do. Monday night, I tried to prepare myself. I set my phone on the nightstand with the camera app open and ready. I put my keys in my pocket before bed, just in case. I left a light on in the hallway. Small, practical measures that made me feel slightly less helpless. At 3:15 a.m., I was lying in bed, staring at my phone. 3:16. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. 3:17. 3 knocks. I grabbed my phone and rushed to the door, this time hitting record on the camera as I looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. I unlocked the deadbolt, unlatched the chain, and pulled the door open while still recording. Nothing, no one. I stepped into the hallway, filming everything. The elevator, still on the ground floor. The stairwell door closed. I walked toward it, my camera pointed ahead. And then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Behind me, from inside my apartment, came the sound of my bedroom door closing. I spun around so fast, I almost dropped my phone. My apartment door was still open. I could see straight through to the hallway inside. The bedroom door, which I'd left open, was now shut. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing through explanations. A draft, a pressure change. Old building, old doors, they swing on their own sometimes. Except my bedroom door had never done that before. Not once in 3 weeks. I stepped back into my apartment slowly, my phone still recording. The living room was exactly as I'd left it. Kitchen empty, bathroom dark, everything normal except for that closed bedroom door. I approached it the way you'd approach a wild animal. Slowly, carefully. My hand reached for the knob. The door was locked from the inside. My bedroom door doesn't have a lock. I checked when I moved in because I wanted to make sure. It's just a standard interior door with a simple round knob. No lock mechanism at all. But now, turning the knob did nothing. It wouldn't budge. The door was stuck or held or something I couldn't explain. I stood there in my own apartment, locked out of my own bedroom, at 3:20 in the morning, with a video on my phone showing absolutely nothing unusual in the hallway. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't call the police. And say what? Someone knocked on my door, and now my door that doesn't have a lock is somehow locked. They think I was insane. Maybe I was insane. I sat down on my couch and waited for sunrise. At 6:30 a.m., when the first gray light started filtering through the windows, I tried the bedroom door again. It opened easily, smoothly, as if nothing had ever been wrong. But I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick and spent the entire day examining the bedroom door. I took the knob apart. I checked the frame. I looked for any mechanism, any way it could have locked or stuck. There was nothing. Just a normal door in a normal frame. I also reviewed the video from that night. 3 minutes of footage showing an empty hallway and my own panicked breathing. Then me rushing back inside. Then me standing in front of the bedroom door, reaching for it, trying the knob. On the video, it looked like the door opened normally. But I knew what I'd experienced. The video didn't show what I'd felt. That night, I decided to stay somewhere else. I packed a bag and headed for my car around 11 p.m. But when I reached the parking lot, I stopped. My car had a note under the windshield wiper. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Plain white paper, folded once. I opened it under the parking lot lights. It said, "Don't leave." That's when I started to realize this wasn't random. This wasn't a prank. Someone or something was focused specifically on me. I went back upstairs to my apartment. I didn't know what else to do. Where would I go? A hotel? For how long? And what if whatever this was followed me there? At least here, in my own space, I could. What? I didn't know. I just knew that leaving felt wrong. The note had made that clear. Don't leave. I triple-checked all the locks. I pushed my couch against the front door. I took a kitchen knife and put it on my nightstand for all the good that would do against something I couldn't see or understand. At 3:17 a.m., the knocking came again. But this time, it was different. The knocks weren't on my front door. They were on my bedroom window. I was on the 4th floor. I didn't move. I couldn't. I lay in bed, paralyzed, listening to those 3 deliberate knocks against the glass. My bedroom window faces the parking lot. There's no fire escape, no balcony, no ledge. Nothing that would allow someone to reach it. The knocking came again. 3 measured strikes against the window. Then silence. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to move. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it at the window from across the room. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the fabric moving slightly from the ventilation. I didn't want to open those curtains. Every instinct screamed at me not to look, but I had to know. I crossed the room with my phone light shaking in my hand. I reached for the curtain. My fingers touched the fabric. Behind me, the bedroom door slammed shut. I whipped around, the phone light dancing wildly. The door was closed. I rushed to it and tried the knob. Locked again. That impossible lock that didn't exist. And then, from the other side of the door, I heard footsteps in my living room. Slow, deliberate, walking from one end of the apartment to the other. I pressed my ear against the door, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The footsteps stopped. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then I heard it. Someone was standing on the other side of the door. I could hear them breathing. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Me on one side of the door, that presence on the other side. Both of us breathing. Both of us waiting. I wanted to say something, to demand to know who was there, but my voice wouldn't work. My throat had closed up completely. Eventually, the breathing stopped. The footsteps resumed, moving away from the door, crossing the living room. I heard my front door open, the deadbolt turning, the chain rattling, the door swinging wide. Then it closed again. All the locks engaged with sharp, mechanical clicks, and the bedroom door unlocked. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed until morning, the knife clutched in my hand, staring at the door. I didn't try to open the curtains. I didn't check the window. I didn't go into the living room. When sunlight finally came, I opened the bedroom door slowly. The apartment looked normal. Nothing moved. Nothing out of place. The front door was locked, all 3 locks engaged, just as they should be. But on my coffee table, there was something that hadn't been there before. A photograph, face down. I approached it like it might explode. My hand was shaking when I picked it up and turned it over. It was a picture of me, sleeping in my bed, taken from the doorway of my bedroom. Last night, I should have left then. I should have grabbed my keys and walked out and never come back. But I couldn't. Something kept me there. Not the note that said, "Don't leave," though that was part of it. It was something else. A feeling that leaving wouldn't help. That wherever I went, this would follow. Because the photograph wasn't just disturbing. Because someone had been in my apartment while I slept. It was disturbing because of the timestamp in the corner. 3:17 a.m. While I was standing against the bedroom door, listening to the breathing on the other side, someone or something had been inside my room the whole time, taking pictures of me, and I hadn't seen them. I spent the rest of that day researching the building. I went down to the lobby and talked to the doorman, an older man named Curtis who'd worked there for 15 years. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Has anyone else in the building reported anything unusual? Strange noises? People knocking on doors at night? Curtis looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're in 4C, right? Yes. He nodded slowly. How long you been here? 3 weeks. And you're just now asking? It wasn't a question. He said it like a statement of fact, like he'd been waiting for me to come down and have this conversation. What happened in my apartment? I asked. Curtis glanced around the empty lobby, then leaned closer. Previous tenant left pretty quick. Broke her lease after 2 months. Before that, guy lasted 3 weeks. Before that, well, 4C has had 12 tenants in the last 4 years. Why didn't the landlord tell me this? Why do you think? Curtis said. Look, I don't know what goes on up there. I just know people don't stay. Did they say what happened? Did they report anything? Curtis hesitated. Then, the last woman before she left, she came down here at 4 in the morning. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. She asked me something strange. What? She asked me how many floors this building has. I frowned. 4 floors, that's obvious. That's what I told her, Curtis said. And you know what she said? She said, then explain the footsteps I hear above me. I went back to my apartment in a daze. Curtis's words echoed in my mind. Footsteps above me. But there was nothing above me. I was on the 4th floor, the top floor. Unless I wasn't. I stood in my living room and looked up at the ceiling. Standard white ceiling, slightly textured. Nothing unusual. But now that I was listening, really listening, I realized something. I had heard sounds from above. Small creaks, the occasional thump. I just assumed it was the building settling, or pipes, or any of the 100 mundane sounds old buildings make. But what if it wasn't? I pulled a chair over and stood on it, pressing my ear against the ceiling. At first, nothing, just silence. Then, so faint I almost missed it, I heard something. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, walking across the ceiling directly above my head. I got down from the chair so fast, I nearly fell. My hands were shaking again. This wasn't possible. There was no 5th floor. I'd seen the building from outside. 4 floors. That's it. But I'd also seen an empty hallway while someone knocked on my door. I'd felt a door lock that didn't exist. I'd found a photograph that shouldn't exist. What I thought was possible didn't seem to matter anymore. I grabbed my keys and went back down to the lobby. Curtis was still at his desk, filling out some paperwork. I need to see the building plans, I said. The original blueprints. Do you have them? Curtis looked at me for a long moment. Then he sighed and pulled out a large drawer from his desk. He withdrew a set of aged, yellowed papers, architectural drawings of the building. Don't usually show these to tenants, he said. But you're going to find out anyway. He spread the blueprints on the desk. I leaned over them, scanning the drawings. Ground floor, 2nd floor, Third floor, fourth floor, and then I saw it. A fifth floor was drawn in the plans, but someone had crossed it out in red ink. Thick, angry lines slashing through the entire level. Below the red lines, in small, neat handwriting, someone had written, SCA-LED 1987. What does that mean? I asked. Sealed. Curtis folded the blueprints back up carefully. Before my time. But the story goes that there was a fifth floor. Something happened up there. Something bad enough that they decided to seal it off completely. Filled in the stairwell access, removed it from the elevator system, even took down the external indicators that showed 5 floors. What happened? Nobody talks about it. Not officially, anyway. But I've heard things over the years. He looked at me seriously. People say someone lived up there alone. Real quiet tenant, kept to himself. Until he didn't. What did he do? Curtis shook his head. I don't know the details, but whatever it was, they sealed that whole floor off afterward, made it like it never existed. Only problem is, he trailed off. What? Sealing something off doesn't make it go away. It just makes it contained, and containers can leak. That night, I didn't even pretend I would sleep. I sat on my couch with every light in the apartment on, the knife beside me, my phone charged and ready. I'd considered so many options. Calling the police and saying what? Contacting the landlord, who clearly knew about this and rented the apartment anyway. Leaving despite the note that said not to. I kept coming back to one thought. Whatever this was, it wanted something from me. The knocks, the locked doors, the photograph. These weren't random acts of violence. They were communication, a warning, an invitation. At 3:00 a.m., I stood up and walked to my front door. At 3:10, I unlocked all 3 locks. At 3:15, I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. I was going to wait for it this time. I was going to see what came to knock on my door at 3:17 a.m. The hallway was silent and empty as always. Fluorescent lights humming their endless drone. I stood outside my apartment, the door propped open behind me with my shoe. I wasn't going to get locked out again. 3:16 a.m. I waited, my breath shallow, every muscle tense. 3:17 a.m. Nothing happened. The hallway remained empty. No footsteps, no sounds, no knocking. I stood there for 5 minutes, then 10, waiting for something that didn't come. Finally, I turned to go back inside. That's when I noticed something at the far end of the hallway. The stairwell door was open, just a crack. I could see darkness beyond it. I hadn't heard it open. It had been closed before, I was certain of it. I should have gone back inside, locked my door, ignored it. But I was so tired of being afraid in my own home. Tired of not understanding what was happening. Tired of waiting for the next inexplicable thing. I walked toward the stairwell door. With each step, the air felt colder. The fluorescent lights seemed dimmer, The humming sound faded until I could hear nothing but my own footsteps and my own breathing. I reached the door and pulled it open wider. The stairwell descended into shadow as expected. But when I looked up, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Another set of stairs going up. There shouldn't have been stairs going up. This was the 4th floor, the top floor. But there they were, concrete steps ascending into darkness. I stood at the threshold for a long time. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn around, to go back to my apartment, to pack my things and leave this building, and never come back, note or no note. But I'd seen the blueprints. I knew there was supposed to be a 5th floor, and I'd heard the footsteps above me. Whatever was knocking on my door at 3:17 a.m. was coming from up there. I started climbing. The stairwell was darker than it should have been. The emergency lights that illuminated the lower floors didn't seem to work here. I used my phone's flashlight, the beam bouncing off gray concrete walls covered in something I didn't want to identify. The air grew colder with each step, and there was a smell, faint but distinct. Decay, old water, something else underneath that I couldn't name. At the top of the stairs, I found a door. It was different from the others in the building. Older, heavy metal with a small window that had been painted black from the inside. And on the door, in faded stenciled letters, I could just make out 5th floor, authorized personnel only. I reached for the handle. It was ice cold under my palm. The door wasn't locked. It opened with a long, low creak that echoed down the stairwell behind me. Beyond the threshold was a hallway identical to the one on my floor. Same layout, same faded carpet, same fluorescent lights, except these lights flickered irregularly, creating a strobing effect that made everything feel unreal. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I tried the handle immediately. Locked. Of course it was locked. The hallway stretched in both directions, but something was wrong with it. The perspective seemed off, like it was longer than it should be. The doors to the apartments were numbered. 5A, 5B, 5C. I walked toward 5C. It would be directly above my apartment. With each step, the flickering lights seemed to sync with my heartbeat. Fast, erratic. The carpet beneath my feet was damp, squelching slightly with each footfall. I reached apartment 5C. The door was already open. I stood in the doorway, my phone light illuminating the interior. The layout was exactly like my apartment. Living room, kitchen to the left, hallway to the right, leading to the bedroom and bathroom. But everything was wrong. The furniture was there, couch, coffee table, TV stand. But it was all covered in a thick layer of dust and something that looked like mold. The walls were water-stained and peeling. The windows were covered with boards, blocking out any external light. And it was cold, so cold I could see my breath. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded muffled, like the air was too thick to carry sound properly. No response. I stepped inside. The door didn't close behind me this time. It stayed open, offering an escape route that I knew was probably an illusion. The living room was empty, except for the decaying furniture. I moved down the hallway toward the bedroom, my footsteps echoing in a way that didn't sound quite right. The bedroom door was closed. I put my hand on the knob. It was freezing, painful to touch. I turned it anyway. The bedroom was furnished just like mine. Bed against the same wall. Dresser in the same corner. Even the curtains were similar, though these were torn and hanging at odd angles. But unlike the rest of the apartment, this room wasn't empty. Someone was lying in the bed. I froze in the doorway, my phone light trained on the figure. They were under the covers, completely still, facing away from me. I could see the shape of a head on the pillow, the rise and fall of breathing beneath the blankets. "Hello," I whispered. The figure didn't move, but the breathing continued. Slow, steady, the breathing of someone deep asleep. I should have run, should have turned and fled back to the stairwell, back to my apartment, out of this building entirely. Instead, I stepped closer. I approached the bed slowly, my light shaking in my hand. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, the first normal sound I'd heard since entering this place. "Excuse me," I said louder now. "I need to talk to you." Still no response, just that steady breathing. I reached out and touched the shoulder under the blanket. The figure rolled over. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping my phone. It was me. The person in the bed was me. Same face, same hair, same scar on my left cheek from a childhood accident. Sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that I was standing there. But that was impossible. I was standing here. I was awake. I was. The me in the bed opened its eyes. We stared at each other. Me standing, me lying down. Both of us wearing identical expressions of horror and confusion. The me in the bed sat up slowly. When it spoke, it was my voice. "You shouldn't be here." What is this?" My voice came out as a whisper. "You weren't supposed to come up here. You were supposed to stay downstairs. That's the rule." "What rule? I don't understand." The knocking was a warning, the other me said, swinging its legs out of bed. "At 3:17 a.m., you're supposed to be in your bed, asleep. That's when I can come down. That's when we switch places. But you kept staying awake. You kept answering the door." My mind reeled. "Switch places? What are you talking about?" The other me stood up fully now. We were the same height, the same build, perfect mirrors. "This building has 4 floors, it said, but it needs 5. There always has to be someone on the 5th floor. Someone sealed away. Someone contained. The tenant from before is up here now, and the one before that, and the one before that." The other me walked closer. "We take turns. Down there in the real world for a while, up here in the sealed floor for a while. As long as everyone follows the rules, it works. But you, it pointed at me with my own finger. You had to investigate. You had to come looking. This isn't real, I said, backing toward the door. This is a dream. This is. You know it's not, the other me said. You've known something was wrong since you moved in. You just didn't want to believe it. I reached the doorway. I'm leaving. I'm going back downstairs, and I'm moving out today, right now. You can't. The other me smiled, and it was my smile, but wrong somehow. Off. You opened the door. You came up to the 5th floor. That means it's your turn now. No, I shook my head violently. No, I'm not staying here. You don't have a choice. It gestured around the room. This is your apartment now. This is where you live. And in a few weeks, someone new will move into 4C downstairs. Someone who lives alone. Someone vulnerable. And at 3:17 a.m., you'll go down there and knock on their door. 3 times, just like I knocked on yours. I won't do it. You will, because that's the only way you get to leave this floor, even for a moment. The other me walked past me, toward the door. Sweet dreams. I'll take good care of your life downstairs. No one will ever know I'm not you. It walked out of the apartment, leaving me standing there in shock. I ran after it, but by the time I reached the hallway, the stairwell door was already closing. I sprinted toward it, but I knew I was too late. I heard the door slam, heard the lock engage. I tried the handle anyway. Locked. I was trapped on the 5th floor. I stood in that flickering hallway for a long time, trying to process what had just happened, trying to find another way out. But there were no exits. The windows were all boarded. The elevator didn't come to this floor. I tried the button, and nothing happened. Eventually, I went back to apartment 5C. My apartment. I sat on the dusty couch and waited for something to change. But nothing did. Hours passed, at least I think they were hours. Time felt strange here, elastic and unreliable. I don't know how long I've been here now. Days, weeks. The cold has become familiar. The flickering lights no longer bother me. I've explored every inch of this floor, all 4 apartments, all equally abandoned, all equally impossible. I've tried breaking down the stairwell door. I've tried prying boards off windows. Nothing works. This floor was sealed for a reason. It's designed to contain. But at 3:17 a.m., I still feel it. Even up here, I'm allowed to go downstairs. I stand outside my old apartment door. I can hear someone inside. The new tenant. A woman who just moved in last week. She lives alone. She works from home. She's exactly like I was. I raise my hand. I know I should warn her. I should tell her to run, to get out while she still can. But if she leaves, I stay here. And I'm so tired of being cold. So I knock 3 times. Sharp, deliberate, purposeful. And I wait to see if she'll be smart enough to stay in bed, or curious enough to answer. Most nights, she doesn't answer. She lies in bed, frightened, clutching her phone. I can hear her breathing through the door. Fast, panicked. Good, she should be scared. But last night, she did something different. Last night at 3:17 a.m., I knocked on her door, and I heard footsteps approaching from inside the apartment. I heard the locks turning, and when the door opened, she wasn't there. The apartment was empty, but I heard footsteps behind me. In the hallway, coming from the stairwell. I turned around slowly. She was standing there at the far end of the hall. But she wasn't alone. There were others with her. 12 figures in the shadows. All the previous tenants of 4C. And they were all walking toward me. I ran back to the stairwell, up to the 5th floor. But when I burst through the door, the hallway was different. Longer, darker, with more doors than before. I can see them now, stretching endlessly in both directions. Apartment after apartment, floor after floor. This building doesn't have 5 floors. It has as many floors as it needs. One for each tenant. One for each person who knocked at 3:17 a.m. and thought they could escape by passing the curse along. We're all here, all of us, stacked on top of each other in impossible floors that don't exist in the real world, but exist somewhere else. Somewhere sealed, somewhere contained. And now I can hear it. Below me, above me, all around me. Knocking. Hundreds of people. On hundreds of impossible floors. Knocking on doors that lead nowhere. 3 times. At 3:17 a.m. Forever. I'm writing this down on my phone. I don't know if anyone will ever read it. I don't know if it will even save once I'm finished. But I need to tell someone. If you're reading this, if somehow this message got out, then you need to know something. If you ever move into a building, and people knock on your door at odd hours, if doors lock that shouldn't lock, if you hear footsteps from floors that don't exist, don't investigate. Don't try to understand. And whatever you do, don't go looking for answers. Because some buildings are sealed for a reason, and some tenants never really leave. I can hear knocking at my door now, but I'm on the sealed floor. There shouldn't be anyone here to knock, unless there's another floor above me. Unless it goes up forever. The knocking is getting louder. I think I'm going to answer it this time. I think I need to see what's on the other side. I'm walking to the door now. I'm reaching for the handle. It's cold. So cold. The door is opening. End of recording. Last activity. 3:17 a.m. Message failed to send. Number disconnected. Apartment 4C. Now available for rent. Tenant NEADAD. First month free.